Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And some days I say that and I'm like, yeah, I am. Yeah, yeah, I am. And some days I'm like, poor me. But that's a part of being a human being. Today I wanted to talk about the positive stuff, really. I wanted to talk about loving myself and accepting myself. And to start with, the program is what helped me get there. But it was slow. I've always loved myself, but I felt like I was a victim and there was nothing I could do with myself. Like I felt like um, I love me, but I have no hope. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to get there. I'm never going to get there. And my program allowed me to start speaking honestly about what is in my heart. And that's the only reason I'm able to even do this podcast, because in the beginning of sobriety, um, I I I could not speak without crying every time. And I felt like it was never going to stop. I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able. I mean, I saw other people doing it. And I never imagined I would be able to talk about this stuff without crying because it was so freaking painful. But by talking about it, I was emptying it out. I was really digging deep down into the areas where I was keeping this stuff and opening the wound up. And by opening the wound, talking about this stuff out loud, I was able to let the healing into the wound. And I mentioned yesterday or the day before, there's a saying that God enters through the wounds, our pain. And that's how I was able to get the healing and my concept of God or my higher power into those wounds, because I had to talk about it. That's the vulnerability, to be vulnerable sitting there for an hour in a room full of practically strangers, opening up my wounds and talking about them and letting people see them. And that made me cry every time, every single time. Um, the reason why it was so hard to open those wounds for me, um, I look at it like I remember that knock over the head almost, that, wait a minute, the world isn't what I thought it was. People don't care about each other the way that I thought they did. People don't care about me the way that I care about them. That's that's what I learned it as. And that's really unfortunate. And I think about my kids because I have told them that was one of my hardest lessons that I had to learn, is that people don't care about me as much as I care about them. And that hurts. But my answer to that was protect myself, build a shell around all of those gentle sides of me, those emotions that I talked about yesterday. Build a shell around them, build a barrier, a wall, like people are hard and I need to get hard. I've been too soft and I had to become hard. And I learned how to build that barrier around my heart. And it was very painful. I did a lot of crying, building that wall, a lot of crying. building that wall. That's the crying before I my disease took over. That was the crying that I was told, you're still crying, you cry too much. Because those emotions, those gentle emotions were still on the surface. And when I learned not to let them be there, it was really painful. The world taught me, now this is my perspective on it, when I was leading into this progressive disease. The world, I felt, was teaching me how to isolate, how to close myself up, how to protect all of that soft side of me. The vulnerability, the open wounds, I just stitched them up and I wouldn't let anybody touch them because I was afraid of them getting broken open. Um, Unfortunately, a couple days ago, Boris, the English bulldog, was playing with my husband. He had just come upstairs from working all day, and he always comes up and, like, I'm making dinner and he's playing with Boris. And yes, Autumn is there, but Autumn is a little out of control. So my husband does not actually touch Autumn or she will lose control. So she plays without being touched. It's kind of hilarious and it sounds sad, but she she loves it. It's fine. And she doesn't jump up on him and stuff if he doesn't touch her, but she's as happy as could be. Anyway, he was playing with Boris and Boris like got all excited because Autumn picked up a toy and Boris launched himself off of my husband, like across my husband on the couch and off of his legs. And on his way down, he scratched this gigantic lesion across my husband's knee. And so the rest of the night, he's fine. He was like, I'm gonna start getting, he's always concerned about infection, as it should be. But he was like looking for streaks to start coming up his leg and stuff like that. I don't know. I never think about that. Like I clean it up, put some bandages on it or whatever, and then I'm done. Like I'm not worried about getting infected, but maybe I should be. Um, what is my point? The rest of the night, he protected his leg, right? Because he didn't want Boris to jump on him and break it back open. So he protected himself of it. He learned his lesson, you know? Um, that's what I feel like, or I felt like in before I got sober was that when somebody hurt me, I closed that wound up, I sealed it, and what I thought I was doing is letting it heal inside there. That's not what was happening. I was just isolating it, and it was going to stay there forever if I didn't let it breathe. You know, like our wounds, we can wrap them up with a bandage, but you need to take the bandage off and let the wound breathe, let some air hit it. And that is what I think about when I think about these wounds, like people who hurt me over the years for any given reason, you know, whether it was a boy that I liked and I thought he liked me, and then all of a sudden he was with somebody else, that kind of thing. You know, that stuff is devastating. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to heal. So the more that I felt these things, the more of these wounds I wrapped up and stuffed into my dark place. And I left them there. And eventually I ran across alcohol, and alcohol was able to like cover all of those wounds. And so I didn't even know that they were there anymore. They were so deep um, that they were just drowning in this alcohol. And I didn't even know that they were there. There was some that I knew that were there, but a lot of them, when I would drink and then I would start crying for 2 hours before I go to sleep. I mean, that happens. Sometimes I was just so freaking depressed that I would just drink and I would cry for like 2 hours, and I'm writing poetry or watching a sad movie. I was just swimming in this depression. Um, when I was doing that, I thought that I was processing the pain, but I wasn't. Um, that was my learned way of coping with a world that turned out to be completely different than what I expected. Um, I decided nobody is going to prioritize me unless it's me. So I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to comfort myself. And alcohol was the thing that comforted me. I heard this morning someone say about taking that first drink. And so, like, I remember one time in particular, I was driving to work. This was at the very end of my drinking. I was driving to work, decided, nope, I can't do it. This was like the week that I just stopped going to work. And I stopped at a gas station, got a big, gigantic bottle of wine, big jug of wine. And then I went back down the mountain into my town and pulled into a community and just started drinking. And what I remember when I stopped the car and I filled up, like I usually had some sort of container that was tinted a different color so I could fill it with wine. And when I filled it up and I took that first drink of the wine, that's all it took. That first drink and swallow. And I could feel my entire body flush. I mean, immediately. I know that I wasn't obviously drunk all of a sudden or even buzzed all of a sudden, but what it did to my body, the happy chemicals, it was immediate when I swallowed one sip, and it was like the dopamine and the everything, it just flushed through my body. And I've said this before, like it made me just audibly go, oh, that's what it was. I mean, um, it's crazy. It's crazy. Side note, I had a dream last night that I did cocaine. That is really weird. I've never done cocaine in my life. I don't even know how you do it. Like I've seen it in shows or movies, but I don't know how you do it. But in the dream, for the first time ever, I actually felt high in the dream, and that was weird. It only lasted for a moment, but I actually felt it in the dream. And I know why I dreamt that, because earlier that day, I was talking to my husband about one one time I was dating a guy and I was sitting in the next room where uh several people were doing coke. And I mean, I think that's what it was. I think that's what it was. That's how just oblivious I am to drugs. But how I just had no idea that that's what was happening in this house that I was in. So the fact that that came up in my daily conversation is why I ended up dreaming about it. But again, have never done it. You know, if I end up running for president and they have to research me, I'm hereby saying I have never done cocaine. Okay, I'm not running for president. That would be terrible. Okay, so where was I at? Like, let's go back to this wound that I'm closing up. I'm pouring alcohol over it, and it's stuck down there in my dark place. It took a lot of crying for me to pack that stuff away. Um, So in order to unpack it, I had to cry it back out. That's exactly how it worked for me. The amount of crying I did to get it in there was the same amount of crying I had to do to get it out. That's how it worked for me. But I know for a fact today, and I wish I could just put this in a bottle and like sell it so that people know that this is an absolute truth. And that is that no matter what pain you feel, speak it out loud and you will heal. That is my belief, 100%. I don't need to build a wall between me and the world anymore. What I needed back then were tools to navigate the world, to navigate that pain. I needed the the first aid kit to clean up the wounds, to let them heal. I needed to stay with them. I needed to hold them, share them with somebody, work with other people to heal it. Um, Today, I don't avoid things. I may procrastinate on something that I'm nervous about or anxious about. But as I've mentioned, you lifetime listeners know, when I'm anxious about something now, I try to deal with it as fast as I can. I need to pause and think it through and methodically take action, but I want to address those bad, scary feelings as fast as I can because I don't have to feel it anymore. Um, yeah, there may be a part of me that wants to deal with it so fast because I'm afraid it's just going to close itself up, you know? Kind of like when I first got sober, I was afraid that alcohol was just going to jump out in front of me behind a bush and throw itself down my throat. I didn't have confidence in my own ability or the tools that I was being introduced to navigate this difficult world. But I'm trying, I'm willing to pick up the tools that help me navigate it. Um, and I have found for me that when I feel vulnerable, when I feel anxious and scared, that's where I'm gonna live better. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna be a better human being when I walk through that. That's just what happens to me. I get stronger when I have some challenge ahead of me and I walk through it. There's almost a part of me that gets a little excited when I've got a challenge, when I've got something that I'm nervous about. It depends on what it is. Like when I was talking to you guys a couple weeks ago about this neighbor of mine that was causing me this debilitating anxiety, I wasn't looking forward to dealing with that one. I felt very small. in that situation. I didn't feel brave. I don't know why, but that's how I felt. But I did go over there and address it. And after I addressed it, I wanted to just come home and cry because it it was scary. I don't know why I got so freaking worked up about that. I think because I felt bad that I wasn't able to be the person that this woman wanted me to be. But I it's okay. I don't beat myself up for the fact that that was hard. Things are gonna be hard. But there are some things that freak me out that get me excited. Um, I got invited to speak at my sponsor's anniversary. And I don't think it's till like March. I think it's next March because that's what the wait is in order to be on the list for celebrants. It's a Friday evening meeting at 8:30 at Club 12 in Leesburg. So I'm going to be speaking in March, and you can join um, on virtually. You can join virtually. So when the time comes around, I'll try to remember to tell you what the Zoom contact information is so that you can listen. If you're afraid to show up because you're afraid somebody's going to see you or something like that, nobody's paying attention. I'm just guaranteeing you that. It's a hybrid meeting, so hopefully I'll be able to be there in person, and then they have a TV where virtual people can call in and listen. So anyway, that kind of thing freaks me out. This in particular freaks me out because this is going to be I haven't done an in-person share like that, which is exactly this Friday meeting, since the last time I did it. And it was a disaster for me. It was a disaster. All of my symptoms triggered while I was up there. I think because of stress, and I couldn't keep my thoughts straight. It was so embarrassing and uncomfortable for me. But I don't know. People came and said that it was fine or it was great. It was great. But it didn't feel great. So it's an opportunity to grow. Those types of things, I feel more like, let me at it, let me at it and I'll do it. And it's going to be fine because I know it's going to be fine. I've done it so many times now that I know there's another side. And whether it goes well or it doesn't go well, I'm still going to get to the other side and it's going to be over. Um, I heard this morning the next right thing is the thing that I'm avoiding and the thing that I don't want to do. And isn't that true? It's so true for me. Like I struggle sometimes with what's the next right thing. Basically, I think about what do I not feel like doing? That's probably the next right thing. um, so that's a good theory to work off of. Um, so this idea of I am the one to prioritize me. I'm the one to take care of me. Nobody will prioritize me. I know my mom prioritizes me, I know my family prioritizes me, but they're not with me all the time anymore. And I have to be there for me. What I was doing when I was drinking was I was making myself unavailable to myself. That's what it seems like. And today, like another thing I heard this morning was that my disease, it's a disease of with opportunity costs. So that means that there are opportunities that passed by me or that I lost due to my drinking. So, what were my opportunity costs by not being present for me? Alcohol made my whole world smaller. It made what was so scary and painful, it isolated me down into this tiny little world, Rachel's world, where all of my wounds are wrapped up tight and stuffed into my dark place. And I no longer interact with anybody who's going to create another wound. So I was just by myself. And alcohol, I felt like was regulating my emotions, but what it was doing was my emotions were actually going haywire. They really were. I could be really, really happy, or I could be really, really depressed, and it could happen in an instant. Um, the things that I was supposed to learn over the course of my life in my teens, in my 20s, in my 30s, I didn't learn because I just poured alcohol over the opportunities. Um, I poured alcohol over them and avoided anything that was going to teach me something. Because, like I just said, that vulnerability and the pain and that stuff that's scary, that's where the learning is. So I didn't do it. I didn't do any of the learning. I didn't show up. I turned the other way. Sometimes I ran. Um, it's it's really, I hadn't thought about it to that degree until today, that I truly was avoiding anything that was scary. So I was never going to achieve anything that was hard unless I stopped drinking. Drinking became more of a requirement than an option. Like early on, I chose to drink. I choose to drink. I choose to drink. I choose to drink until all of a sudden, I have to drink. I have to drink. I need to drink. That's how it morphed for me. And it was chronic. It became chronic. So it was a daily obsession. It progressed into this chronic obsession that if I did not somehow find my way into sobriety, it was going to be fatal. Absolutely 100% sure that I would not be here today if I had not stopped drinking when I was 42. I couldn't be more certain of that, which is just scary. It's really scary. So I think that I talk a lot about ways that we can navigate through pain without drinking. And I was thinking yesterday, of this do business idea because that's what I do. It runs in the family. I was thinking of a business idea and I was in the shower and I'm like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. And then, so I texted my brother. I'm like, brother, I have an amazing business idea. So I sent him a message And I'm like, it's your turn to poke holes in it. And so he's like, he finds a couple holes to poke, but he's like, I kind of like that idea. And then we went about our days and stuff. So then I got back home and I was like, I'm going to talk to Chatty McChatterton, ChatGPT, I'm going to talk to Chatty and we're going to draw up a business plan because I have to exercise my brain. This is what I do for fun. So I talked to Chatty and I'm like, this is my business plan. Ask me questions in order to refine the business plan. And so that's what happens. Chatty asked me like 20 questions. I answered all of them. And then Chatty produced a business plan for this business. So then I sent that to my brother and he was like, wow, this is very detailed. And I was like, it's okay. I didn't write it. Chatty wrote it. And so he came up with a couple holes. And then I sat down with my husband and I told him what my idea was immediately. I mean, it almost irritated me. I'm just going to say that. He doesn't listen to this podcast. It almost irritated me when he said, um, that's already been done. Like he didn't even think about it for a second. He responded immediately with, that's already been done. And I was offended. And I was like I couldn't even speak. I was like he just, what do you call it? Pulled the wind out of my sail, blew the wind out of my sail, whatever. Um, and then he was right. Well, no, he wasn't. There is a similar business that is available in Asian countries. But what I'm proposing is not exactly available in the United States. At least I couldn't find it. Um, and why? What is my point? Yeah, I have to come back to that sometimes. What is my point? It is that I felt like I had something original, something unique to offer. And then I saw that it's already been done. And I thought, there are no new ideas in this world. There aren't any new ideas. It's all about building on old ideas. That's fine. There's nothing I say in this podcast that is original. It's been said before. My experience is the only thing that's original about this podcast is that it's coming out of me. But I got kind of poopy about the fact that this original, unique business idea was kind of not unique. I mean, it is a little bit. And then I thought about the podcast and I was like, am I not doing anything unique here? I'm not doing anything unique. And then I started thinking about all these freaking self-help books, self-help podcasts, the daily stuff. And I'm like, it starts to make me feel like, why am I even doing this? And then I stopped myself and I thought, stop doing this to yourself, Rachel. Your goal was to help one person. Your goal was to have one listener whose life changed and they became sober. That's it. That was my goal. And I have had a handful of people so far that have sent me a message telling me that I am a part of their daily routine and that what I'm saying matters to them and it's helping them. And that's why I do it. So this podcast isn't about self-help. It's not about self-improvement. It's about self-acceptance and self-love. Um, and that is not unique per se, but my journey is unique. And if I can share that and help another person, then it's all worth it. It's all worth it. That's why I'm here. So I need to continue to talk about how I accept life the way that it is for me. Um, and if I can talk about the way that I practice gratitude and mindfulness and emotional regulation without drinking, how I manage this idea of wanting to be perfect, but knowing I can't be perfect ever. How do I learn how to stop trying to control people, places, and things, and instead change the way that I respond to them? Somebody said this morning, it's easier to put slippers on than it is to carpet the world. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. Obviously, that makes sense. But what does that mean in sobriety? Um, for me, carpeting the world is what I was trying to do when I was drinking. I was trying to control things that it's just not possible. I wanted to reshape everybody and everything around me so that it will fit into my expectations of how the world should be. Because it wasn't. It wasn't turning out the way that I thought it was supposed to. And once I got sober and I learned about these tools in my program, I was able to put slippers on and I was able to learn how to adapt, but adapt in a way that actually feels good. Isn't that weird? The world hasn't changed, but for some reason, go figure, I can walk through it now and it's not taking blood, sweat, and tears to do it anymore. Um, so I hope that, and I know that it is, this podcast is encouraging to other people because I want to be a living example of when life gets hard, you do it anyway. So thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.